Thanks for tuning in for this lesson of Shop for Value, Check the Facts. Do you often get confused when comparing food products at the grocery store? Do you often ask yourself questions like, which one gives me the most nutrition for my money? And what information do I need to use to compare foods? What choices are best to prepare healthy meals for my family? Maybe these are questions you've asked yourself, or maybe you're not even sure what questions to ask when you shop for your family. Don't worry, because this lesson will teach you how to shop for value and check the facts. Do any of you use a nutrition label when you shop? The food label is called nutrition facts. These are the facts we need to check to shop for the best value. Reading food labels helps us make the best choice possible for feeding our family. Food labels give us information about the nutrients in a particular food and whether that food may fit or not into our plan for eating smart and making good food choices. You probably already use at least some part of the nutrition facts label to help you compare foods. But the more familiar you become with the information on the label, the more confident you will be that you're making the best possible choice for your family. Let's take a look at what we can find on the nutrition facts label. One thing the label helps us to do is determine how many servings are in the container. The serving sizes used on the food label are standardized to help us compare similar foods to each other. The serving size information can help us determine how much of a food product each person in your family will eat. It also helps us compare similar foods so that we can choose the one with the most nutrients. This information helps us control our portion sizes and our budget. Take a look at these 3 bowls of cereal. According to the nutrition facts label for this cereal, a serving size is 3/4 cup. That's a bit less than many of us eat. It is important to pay attention to the serving size listed for each food and to think about how much of the food that we actually eat. Even when we make a healthy choice, if we eat too much of it, we will consume unwanted calories and can gain unwanted weight. The food label is based on one portion of food, not necessarily the entire container. For instance, let's say you pop a bag of microwave popcorn for a snack. The nutrition facts label says there are 110 calories per serving and 2 servings in the bag. If you were to eat the whole bag, probably something each of us have done at one time or another, how much are you actually eating? Correct. That's 220 calories. If you eat the whole bag each time you eat popcorn, how could this affect your health? The nutrition facts label tells us how many calories are in one serving for the serving size listed. This is for one serving of the food. In this particular item, there are 250 calories in one serving, and if we ate the whole container, it would be 500 calories. In this part of the food label, we can find some valuable information that will help us make good decisions for our overall health and the health of our family members. In this portion, we're going to talk about total fats, saturated fats, trans fats, cholesterol, sodium, potassium, total carbohydrates, and proteins. First, saturated fats are mostly from animal sources such as meats and dairy products. Saturated fats are solid at room temperature, and it's important to limit them to less than 10% of calories per day. Trans fats are plant fats that have been processed so that they act like saturated fats in our bodies. Trans fats are in most processed foods, and it's important to limit the intake as less as possible. Both saturated fat and trans fats are associated with an increased risk of heart disease. Our bodies make all the cholesterol we need, so when we consume foods high in cholesterol, it can result in high blood pressure levels. Cholesterol is present in foods that are also high in saturated fat and trans fat. To help lower blood cholesterol, replace saturated and trans fats with monosaturated and polyunsaturated fats found in fish, nuts, and liquid vegetable oils such as olive oil. Next is sodium, which is salt. It is often added to processed foods as a preservative. High intakes of sodium are associated with an increased risk of blood pressure. Limit daily sodium intake to at least 2,300 milligrams or less. And potassium is a key nutrient shown on this label. Key nutrients such as potassium, calcium, iron, and many other vitamins and minerals helps us maintain a healthy body. Look for foods that have at least 10% or more of a key nutrient. Total carbohydrates includes both dietary fiber and sugar. The current nutrition facts label does not distinguish between naturally occurring sugar and added sugar. There is expectation that the new nutrition facts label will make this distinction. Look for foods that are a good source of dietary fiber and low in sugar. Check the ingredient list of foods to see if sugar is added as an ingredient. And protein is consumed in adequate amounts for most of us, but it is important to remember to choose a variety of protein foods, including lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, beans, and seeds. Try to include at least 8 ounces of seafood each week. And research suggests a strong association between intake of seafood and a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. That's a lot of information to absorb, but it's easy when you break it down step by step. Let's take a look at each one and how the information we see can help us shop for value. Eating too much fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, or sodium may increase your risk of certain chronic diseases like heart disease, some cancers, or high blood pressure. Choose foods that are very low in these nutrients. Now, let's take a look at the carbohydrates on this label. Carbohydrates are the source of several key nutrients and energy that our bodies need. Total carbohydrates include fiber, starch, and sugar. A check of the list of ingredients can help you determine if there's a lot of added sugar. If sugar is one of the first few ingredients in the list, then there's a lot of added sugar. To eat smart, look for foods that have higher amounts of fiber and lower amounts of sugar. Fiber may reduce the risk of certain types of cancers and helps you feel and stay full longer. For most adults, the recommendation is to consume 25 grams of fiber per day. Next, let's look at the percent of daily value. It is based on the daily value recommendations for key nutrients for a 2,000 calorie daily diet. Like most people, you may not know how many calories you consume in a day, but you can still use the percent of daily value as a guide. It helps you determine if a serving of food is high or low in a nutrient. If the daily value is 5% or less, this means that this food is low in that nutrient. If the value is 20% or more, the food is a high source of that nutrient. Remember, this is for one serving only. Look at the amount of total fat in one serving. Is 18% of daily value contributing a lot or a little to your fat limit of 100% of daily value? It is below the 20% of daily value, so it is not considered too high. You would double that amount eating 36% of your daily allowance for the total fat from just one food in one setting. Now let's look at calcium. The daily value for calcium is 20%, so this food is an excellent source of calcium. Let's look at fiber. Is this food a good source of fiber? No, as it is 0%, meaning there is no nutrient value in this particular item. In addition, vitamins A, C, and D, calcium, potassium, and iron content in foods can also be found on some food labels. Some foods are fortified or enriched with extra nutrients and may list these as well. When looking at these nutrients, if a food has 10% or more, it is considered a good source of that nutrient. If the food has 20% of the nutrient, it is an excellent source. Which nutrient shown in this food is considered an excellent source, meaning 20% or more? Correct, it looks like it's calcium and sodium. At the bottom of the nutrition facts label is a guide to help us meet our eating smart goals. This guide shows recommendations for a 2,000 calorie diet and a 2,500 calorie diet. This guide will always be the same. It doesn't change from product to product because it shows recommended dietary advice for all adults. It's provided for your reference, so you don't have to remember all of these recommended amounts. The information will always be right there for you on the nutrition facts label. Most women should follow the 2,000 calorie diet if they are moderately active and maintain weight. Moderate activity is 30 minutes of physical activity, such as walking, that is beyond your normal daily routine. The recommendations for fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrate, and dietary fiber are called the daily values. This is the amount of each nutrient recommended for the entire day. Your personal nutrient needs may be more or less than the recommended amount shown, but this is an excellent quick guide to give you a general idea.
Everybody loves lasagna. Most people don't have the time it takes to make it. Today, I will share with you our easy lasagna recipe that can be ready to eat in 30 minutes. Before beginning, be sure to wash your hands and sanitize your work surfaces. I have read the recipe and collected all the ingredients and cooking supplies that I'll need and placed them on the counter. As you can see, we're not cooking our lasagna in the oven, but we're using an electric skillet. You could also use a regular skillet on top of the stove, heated to medium. Spray your skillet with non-stick cooking spray. It's a good idea to do this over the sink so your floor does not become slippery. Preheat your skillet to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Add your ground beef and cook until brown. This recipe helps to stretch your food dollar as it only calls for a half pound of extra lean ground beef. You could also use ground turkey or ground chicken. Take the other half pound of ground meat and wrap it in plastic wrap. Place it in a freezer bag and store in the freezer for another recipe. Once your ground meat is cooked through, drain it in a colander or strainer over a bowl. You don't want that grease going down your sink to clog up your pipes. When the grease is cool, you can simply put it in the trash. Return the drained meat to the skillet and stir in diced tomatoes, water, parsley, oregano, and Italian seasoning. You can also add spaghetti sauce with chunky tomatoes for a thicker sauce. Anytime you use canned products, check the sodium on the label and look for low or no salt added products whenever possible. Bring your mixture to a boil. Add uncooked egg noodles. I like using whole wheat noodles. Cover the lid and cook on medium heat for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, stir in the cottage cheese. Cover and cook for 5 minutes. Stir in 1½ cups of shredded mozzarella cheese. Then sprinkle the remaining ½ cup on top. Cover and remove from heat. Let stand for 5 minutes to allow the cheese to melt. How easy was that? Add some fruit, a salad, and a glass of milk to make it a complete meal. Join us for our next session, and we'll share another healthy recipe with you.
Next, let's get up and do a move more activity. As a reminder, you should only move in ways that feel comfortable to you, and you should stop immediately if you experience any pain. Next, let's do some move more strength exercises. Arm circles. Hold your arms out, palms down. Make arm circles at any size you feel comfortable. Do this for about a minute. Shake your arms out and circle your shoulders a few times after. Biceps curls. You can either use resistant bands or one can of food in each hand. With arms down and palms up, tuck elbows tight against your waist. Slowly curl arms up. Breathe in as you move arms up and breathe out as you move arms down. Repeat 10 times. One way to use the nutrition facts label is to compare products. Let's look at these two items. One way to use the nutrition facts label is to compare products. Let's look at these two types of crackers. What is the serving size of each product? Well, on the left, the saltines looks like it's 5 crackers per serving. And on the right, for the wheat crackers, it looks like it's 4 crackers per serving. How many calories are in a serving of each product? Correct. The saltines have 60 calories, and the wheat crackers on the right have 90 calories. And finally, which product is lower in fat? You got it, the saltines on the left. Either of these items could fit into an eating smart plan. However, as with all foods, watching the portion size is important. Let's compare different kinds of milk. On the left is the whole milk. On the right is skim milk. Which milk has less calories? Correct, the skim milk. And which milk has less fat? Again, the skim milk. Notice that the fat content of the milk does not affect the calcium content. In general, the skim milk would be a better choice for members of your family over the age of 2. You get the great nutrients such as calcium and vitamin D without all of the fat. Here are 2 more items for us to compare. Baked potato chips versus regular potato chips. Which kind of chips has fewer calories? Correct, the baked potato chips. Which kind of chips has less fat? Again, the baked potato chips. Which kind of chips has less sodium? The baked potato chips. Look at the label for the regular chips on the right. This was a small bag of chips like you'd get out of a vending machine or at a convenience store. Yet the whole bag contains 2.5 servings. In this case, the label shows nutritional information for 1 serving as well as for the whole bag. Other information on the food label that may be helpful in making good food choices is the ingredients list. Ingredients are listed in order by the weight of the ingredient in the food. The ingredient present in the largest amount is listed first. Look to see that the first ingredient listed is the reason you are buying the food. For example, you wouldn't want to purchase a chunky chicken soup if chicken was near the end of the list. This would mean that your chunky chicken soup would have very few chunks of chicken. What is the ingredient that is in the largest amount in this food? Correct, the whole grain oats and the modified cornstarch. The bread aisle in the grocery store is one of the most confusing for shoppers. There are so many choices. How do we know which one is the best? Let's do an activity together to get us started in checking the facts. Take a look at these 2 loaves of bread. They both look very similar and cost about the same. The dietary guidelines suggest that we choose whole grains for good health. So we are looking for a whole grain bread to purchase for our family. Which one do you think is whole grain? Correct, the one on the left, as it states 100% whole wheat. So if it says whole wheat or whole grains, look for those items, as they are going to be whole wheat. Honey wheat bread is not a whole grain. Let's look at the ingredient list for both breads. Remember, the first ingredient listed is the one present in the largest amount. What do you notice about the ingredients in these two products? Well, one states stone ground versus enriched wheat flour. The bread on the left is a whole grain food. Whole wheat flour is the first ingredient. The bread on the right does not have any whole grains at all, even though it looks very similar to the other bread. The first ingredient is wheat flour, but it is not whole wheat flour. The bread on the left would be a better choice for you and your family because it is whole grain. So why do we want to choose whole grains? The dietary guidelines recommend that we make at least half our grains whole, or in other words, at least 3 servings a day. While whole grains are important to our health because they help us maintain a healthy weight and reduce our risks of type 2 diabetes, stroke, colorectal cancer, and heart disease. There are some terms that appear on labels that have a specific meaning. Fat-free, low-fat, reduced fat, light, and light. A package of reduced fat muffins may not be a low-fat, low-calorie food. If its original fat content per muffin was 20 grams and the fat has been reduced to 15 grams, it is still 5 times higher than the 3 grams per serving that officially qualifies it as low fat. Also, reduced fat, low fat, and fat-free don't mean calorie-free. It doesn't mean eat all you want. You still need to read the whole label carefully. Companies which label their foods with these terms must follow strict rules. Health claims found on labels must link a nutrient found in the food to a specific disease risk. Only government-approved health claims can be placed on food labels. Recent research has led to the recommendation for most people, including children, to reduce sodium intake. On average, the higher our intake of sodium, the higher our blood pressure will be. Look for labels that state no salt added or low in sodium. While you will still need to check the nutrition facts label, this tells you that the main manufacturer of the food is making an effort to lower the sodium content. Be careful of labels such as lower in sodium. This is a bit misleading as the product is only lower than its original version, but not necessarily low in sodium. Choose non-processed foods and fresh fruits and vegetables when they are in season. Choose foods low in sodium and prepare foods with little added salt. If there is a special on regular canned foods that fits your budget better, drain the liquid and rinse the foods under running water to remove as much of the excess sodium as possible. While sodium does add flavor to foods, we can reduce the amount of sodium we consume over time. The food label can also help us identify ingredients that may be problems for us or a family member. Some people have allergies to certain foods. Because ingredients used in the processing of our foods are not always easy to recognize, the ingredients listing for foods makes it easier to identify food allergens, such as milk, wheat, or nuts. We can find information about food allergens by reading the label. Food allergens listed in the ingredient list include the common name of the food listed in parentheses. The food label must include the type of tree nuts, fish, or shellfish in a food product. More than 160 foods have been identified to cause food allergies in sensitive individuals. However, 8 major food allergens, milk, soybeans, shellfish, wheat, tree nuts such as almonds or cashews, eggs, peanuts, and fish. It is estimated that 2% of adults and about 5% of infants and young children in the U.S. suffer from food allergies. Approximately 30,000 consumers require emergency room treatment, and 150 Americans die each year because of allergic reactions to food. Let's do a quick comparison of our easy lasagna to a store-bought frozen lasagna. Which lasagna has the lowest number of calories? The easy lasagna on the left or the frozen lasagna on the right? It looks like the easy lasagna. Which lasagna has the lowest number of calories from fat? It looks like the easy lasagna. Which lasagna has the highest amount of dietary fiber? This one, it looks like the frozen lasagna. And which lasagna has the lowest amount of sodium? Correct, the easy lasagna. The Nutrition Facts food label is one tool for helping you shop for value and eat smart. During your next grocery visit, use the Nutrition Facts food label to help you make good choices for your family. Remember to use the Nutrition Facts portion of the label and the ingredient list when selecting food for your family. What is one change you will make when selecting items in the grocery store? What will make this hard for you and your family, and how will you overcome this challenge? Thanks for tuning in for this lesson of Shop for Value, Check the Facts. Remember to use labels to compare foods, use labels to help control portions, and also use labels to identify whole grain products. Thanks for tuning in.